The Napa Valley is the heart of Northern California's wine country. Nestled among the quiet hills and fertile fields is the tiny town of Calistoga, famous for its spring water and mud baths. Robert Louis Stevenson once lived here, and it was in his former house that Louis and Alice Vermiel raised their family. Louis owned the Owl Garage, a blue-collar workshop in this white wine world.
You'd have to see a picture of the Owl Garage to really appreciate what it looked like. Beat-up old shack is what it was. And inside it looked like nobody knew where everything was, but if Louis wanted something, he knew exactly where it was. And outside was a cemetery for old cars.
People look at it, and they turn their nose up at the place, and it don't look too, appetizing, to say.
Well,
the main thing, we got the job done.
We went to Calistoga to meet his father and mother, and it was Central Casting, the Owl Garage, right beside the only Catholic church in town. I remember it was Our Lady of Perpetual Help. I said, that's what we need. We hire your son. We need some perpetual help.
The Catholic Church and Louis didn't always get along too well because of the fact that Louis would bang on his cars, his freight cars, and while they were trying to say Mass.
His father was just working, and I said, are you going to the game? Your son, yeah, I got to work, Jimmy. I can't go to any game. I got to work. And it was a real insight into Dick and his work ethic. I mean, Dick's work ethic came from, that Owl Garage. And I think he and his brothers taking cars apart and seeing what makes them work, I think that was his training for being a good coach and a teacher.
When you decided to make your career as a football coach, what did your dad think about that? Was he disappointed that you weren't going to be a mechanic and go into continue the family business?
Well, I think first off, he was disappointed I went to college. Because
he was disappointed you went to college.
I think so. I think he wanted me to stay there and work in the garage because I started working in the garage full time at 15 years old, and I was a journeyman mechanic by the time I was in junior college. It was going to be Vermiel and Sons Garage, and he said it was only one way to do something, and that was his way, and it had to be right, and it was almost never right. It was almost never good enough, and if you did something real well, and it passed his examination, then you might get a grunt. Maybe, okay, never great job. My mom and dad never went on a vacation. He thought it was a sign of a weakness. The garage was named the Owl Garage because he worked all night. He'd eat his dinner and go back to work. So that's the only kind of dad I ever saw was a guy that worked 18, 20 hours a day.
The toughness that Dick has comes from his dad, and yet the passion for people and the love and loyalty that he generates comes from his mom, Alice.
What are you going to say? Yeah, you say, go ahead. We wish all the kids and the family
a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
She really loved people. She loved to feed them. That was her claim to fame. Her way of receiving recognition was to feed them. She fed every kid in Calistoga.
People were coming into the house, visiting, just passing through, and the deputy sheriff, who had to be about 320 pounds, and his mom just hugged him immediately. And I thought, my goodness, that's Dick Vermiel, hugging people and happy to see them, and tears coming out of his eyes, and he did get that part from his mom.
Dick Vermiel didn't spend all his time in the Owl Garage. He enjoyed the outdoors, and he enjoyed competing in athletics. He starred in 4 sports at Calistoga High School and developed a lasting friendship with classmate and teammate Warren Butler.
My family had one of the first TV sets in Calistoga. Dick would bring the ice cream, and we'd watch Groucho Marx. That was the big thing in those days.
That was until he met Carol Drake.
What would you do on a date with Carol?
Well, I had an old 36 Ford Coupe. And a typical date might be spend Sunday all day working on my car, and she would help me work on the car.
You would work on the car?
Oh, yeah.
What would you do?
Work on the car. Well, I learned how to take carburetors apart.
So Dick would call you up for a date, and would you go out for dinner?
No, we'd eat at his house because they always had steak and all this good stuff, And
then from there, you go right into the garage?
There wasn't much else to do in the Napa Valley. Go out and park, neck a little bit, and that kind of stuff.
I just thought he was real cute. And I still do. I think he is. He's a very handsome guy,
Were you a big fan?
I was a cheerleader.
Oh, you were?
Oh, yeah. It's like Happy Days story.
So the star quarterback married his cheerleader sweetheart, and they began their life together.
In my junior year, we lost a game about halfway through the season. It was the only one we lost in the 2 years that was a league game. And we were all scared, wondering what our young coach was going to do. He got on the bus and he looked at us and he said, I just want all of you to know that I'd go to hell for any one of you boys. Great game. And he sat down and we all just burst crying. And the first time in our lives, probably, of a group of guys. And it was so powerful because it taught us that it wasn't about winning, that it was about the game of life.
All the Hillsdale players had leather helmets. I mean, we looked like something out of Newt Rockney. And one of the first things he did when he came here was to get us out of those and into Riddell plastic helmets.
Vermiel had gone down to the hardware store and bought red and blue Mystic tape and in a big box. And part of our preparation for the game was to put our numbers and our stripes on the helmets. Well, boy, did we feel puffed up with that symbolism. But what he was triggering in us was that pride. And there are the players sitting on the floor cutting the numbers out and helping each other decorate their hats for the game.
And absolutely no one had ever filmed a Hillsdale High School game. It just wasn't done. And he immediately got, I think, some parent donations and got this very fancy 16mm film, I guess. And so we had game films.
The Hillsdale Knights began to see football as a science, and their thickest textbook was the one authored by Dick Vermiel.
This was Vermiel's playbook in high school. His plays had names and numbers.
Slam right, blast right.
Blast.
Rip, roar.
Rip.
Tear right.
And explode.
Slam left, counter trap.
Slam right, counter trap that we opened every game with. And all that's laid out. Now this is just unprecedented for high school. This is another class. We're going to have to study this. And some of it was complex, and we actually wrote it on our forearm pads. Some of the stuff, some of the keys.
Even when football ended, Vermiel showed he truly was a coach for all seasons.
He had never coached swimming. And so part of his coaching job was to coach swimming in the spring.
But he just went out and found out how you coach swimming and then just motivated the heck out of everyone that got in the water.
They won the championship. So the method works in the water and on land.
What I sort of remember in locker rooms ahead of time was he always used to kind of dim the lights and play Ray Charles.
Far spacious skies.
Ray Charles.
Far amber waves of grain.
I first saw him in 1959. That was my first coaching job. When Ray Charles sings God Bless America, everything's going our way, guys.
But in a pre-game locker room, no voice set a tone better than Vermiel himself.
Carol Vermiel, his wife, was standing at these glass doors, and we were in the warm-up locker area, and Dick was talking about being a champion and what it means. It's not about winning, but the championship season is your whole life, and the emotion attached with that. Well, this built up for about 5 minutes, and we were all weeping, and I looked over at the door, and Carol was weeping, and it was time for us to go onto the field. This group of these are high school boys, right? And we broke the doors getting out of the locker room. The one door was off to the side of its hinges, and the glass was broken in the other one, and charged out on the field. And I think we were making so much noise as a team that my recollection is that the fans got quiet as they heard this roar come on the field.
Led by number 42, Don Leidig, the Knights brought Vermiel his first championship. Leidig went on to become principal at Hillsdale High. He never forgot the lessons he learned from Dick Vermiel. And Vermiel never forgot him either.
The year I came here, he sent a copy of the game my junior year against Burlingame High School that he had kept long time. And he wrote a little note in there, congratulations on the job, and remember to be a leader.
In my career as a geography professor in college and a textbook author, the same principles, this integration of your feeling and your passion with your knowledge and your skills, like your bliss, to follow your bliss, works every day I walked into class for the last 30 years. Being touched at a fundamental level at an immature age like that it stays with you the rest of your life.
If 3 of your former players, or let's say one of your players that you coached in high school, a former Eagle, and a Ram were sitting over there and they were talking about you, what would you hope that they would be saying?
He was tough, but I respect that. He made us do things maybe they didn't think they could do. Help them raise their own level of expectation. Make them care.
When my dad passed away, I was a sophomore in college. Like any young guy, you need someone to tell you right from wrong. When I came to Philadelphia, Dick Vermiel became that father figure to me.
I think he's a co-father for me, and my father would admit that too.
I love my father, but I think of Dick Vermiel a lot more than I do of my father.
There's two men in my life that I would consider to be, mentors. One would be my father, and the other would be Dick Vermiel.
That's just remarkable to have somebody with knowledge and ability coupled with the passion and the feeling, have that all connected. And to be able to have a mentor or a teacher like that was astounding.
He would chew my butt out. But when I made those mistakes, because I suffered for making those mistakes, I never made it again. I realized what was right, what was wrong. And I'm not talking only about X's and O's right now. I'm talking about how I lived my life off the field, how I dealt with my wife, how I dealt with my kids.
Raising my children, I think about the things he said. I go, oh, that's what he was talking about.
There's times when I know that I'm not doing the best I can in certain things, whether it's family or business or whatever else, and then I think of him and I think I can do better than this. And it's something to have that influence in your life.
You bet, buddy. You bet. You got an Eagles hat too? Huh? You don't have an Eagles hat. That Phillies hat's good, but that Eagles aren't too bad either.
Why do you think there's been such a love affair between you and Philadelphia? I mean, they say this is no autumn romance. This has been going on for 20 years. And you're a transplanted Californian.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, cheese!
And yet you come to Philadelphia, you're all over the place, you see your picture up on billboards.
It's funny because in a way, it's like he's still watching you, like he's still watching film of you and he's critiquing you. You drive down the Schuylkill, you drive down Vine Street. There he is.
The other day on the radio they were saying if Dick Vermeil wanted to run for mayor, he would win in Atlanta. Why do you think that is?
Believable. When he tells you something, you can rely on it. He doesn't BS us.
There aren't many people like Dick Vermeil, whether you know it or not. I know it because there isn't a week that goes by that he doesn't call me. I mean every week. Most of the time it's 2 times a week. And what does he want to know? How do I feel and do I need anything? And if I need anything, it's in the mail before I know it.
After his days as owner of the Eagles, Leonard Toews lost a reported $25 million gambling. He was forced to sell the team and lost his house to creditors. One thing he never lost was the friendship and support of Dick Vermeil.
Most of the money I've gotten is from Vermeil. Without asking, though.
Whether it's an owner who gave him his first head coaching job or a player who helped him win his first championship, Dick Vermeil remains a coach and a friend for all seasons.
Over the years, that's been a wonderful thing, to get an occasional phone call. And he'll usually say something like, is this number 60? And I'll go, yeah, and then it'll be him, and then we'll talk. And I always kind of stand up when the phone rings when that happens. But I treasure that.
It can be someone like me who, a pretty minor bit player in his career. And, I can send him a letter and he'll call back probably seems like the second that hits his desk. And I'm thinking, here's a high school football player 30 years ago, and here's the Super Bowl coach calling him back. Pretty impressive.
It's only till you get out of football and you get that phone call once a week or once a month or whatever, and he asks, how you doing, how's your family, is there any way I can help you, what's going on? Then you realize, we all realize we're around an extraordinary guy.
When we were with you at the Maxwell Club, John Spagnola came up to you and he said that he'd sent you a letter.
Mm-hmm. Coach, how are you?
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you.
It really took about 10 days to write it, to get it all out, and it was, I probably cried on, every time I wrote a little bit about it.
Do you remember what he said in that letter?
I can't, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, you can't? Because
without getting emotional.
You just get too emotional? Is that?
Mm-hmm. John Spagnola's letter was special. And what I hope is I hope it expressed the feelings of a lot of guys that have played together.
Dear Coach, I've been tempted on numerous occasions these last 2 weeks to pick up the phone, congratulate you on the stunning victory in Super Bowl 34, and to tell you how thrilled I was for your success this year. But I didn't, for the simple reason that the spoken word cannot adequately express the feelings I have for you as a person, a coach, and a mentor. You have no idea what profound influence you have been and continue to be on the lives of the many men you've coached over the years. Thank you for teaching me that dedication, hard work, teamwork, and devotion to family are the true keys to success and happiness. Long after the glow of this Super Bowl has faded, those principles will be passed on by your players to their children and to their children's children. This win reaffirms in all your players what we already know to be true, that we were all better football players and men for having known you.
Basic principles that it takes to win will never change. If it's 1980, 1990, year 2000, 2010, when you're raising your own kids. You surround yourself with good people and work hard and be unselfish and care and don't be embarrassed to say I love you and I appreciate it. And because, guys, if you say it, someone else will say it back to you. And guys, I love you. And you know that.